Thank you very much. I'm just rushing from another meeting, so that's why I'm not there. I didn't want to miss my slot, and so I just want to thank you first of all for your for the opening statements and the contributions so far today. But I also want to thank you most sincerely for the ongoing work that you do. Particularly, Bar has been particularly brilliant to me personally in a couple of things that I needed to run past her. We had I suppose, a meeting. The Fine Gael Parliamentary Party met with families for the reform of CAMS recently, and in that they put forward some very stark statistics, and they're reflected in much of what you guys have to say this evening. On one of them is this idea of, a key worker. And that a key worker and a clear care plan must be provided for every child under the remit of CAMS. And the statistics they put forward on that are, of their members, 72% there is no key worker and no care plan. And where there is, only 12% of the children of their families actually have a key worker and a care plan. So I suppose I wanted to just see if you concur with those kind of figures, first of all, and also maybe to describe the consequences that arise from the failure of a key worker in a care plan, please.
Well, I can speak from my previous role in the child care system, where I was in the voluntary sector working with children in the care system for 23 years. And there were a couple of things that made it almost impossible to get children seen. One would be that GPs were the only ones allowed to do a referral. Now, we might get them a GP for the first time, and the GP wouldn't have a notion of who they were except for their name and date of birth. But they were the only ones able to do a referral. So the referrals were led by us, but the GP would write them. So it was hard to get even on the waiting list. We had our own key working system within the community, and the community connect very well with each other, and including with SASE. And we were able to get some direct referrals into SASE, where we didn't have to go through this whole system of a GP first and then through the CAMS gatekeeping system that they have. And I think having direct referrals. The other problem was that if CAMS were even half interested in looking at a referral, they wouldn't phone and speak to the people who knew the young people. They just took the GP referral, who wouldn't always know the young person. But if CAMS had some sort of system where they actually spoke to the referrers, the adults who actually knew the young person, they would then be able to get a better idea of what it was they were dealing with and whether or not they were the best and most appropriate service or not. We'd often never get that far. So that would be a problem. I very rarely got somebody into CAMS, so when we did get somebody into CAMS, they were generally referred out. So trying to get a key worker or to get a care plan is very difficult. Then the young person gets lost in the system because they don't know where to go. You'd have Jigsaw who would say, look, they're too high profile for our service. And CAMS saying they don't reach the threshold for their service. So there's a huge gap between Jigsaw and CAMS for young people who just don't seem to fit the criteria for either. If a young person is using drugs, then both Jigsaw and CAMS are reluctant to see them. Now, a lot of the young people that I would have worked with over the years would be self-medicating because they've waited so long to get help that they can't get the help, so they self-medicate. Weed is very good for anxiety, as far as they're concerned, and it becomes, alcohol and other substances can help them kind of get away from their own internal dialogue, their own internal depression, their anxiety. Illicit drugs work when you can't access the services. And then once you get to using illicit drugs that are useful to you, then you fall into the patterns of being involved in the getting off the mainstream into the margins, where it gets very dangerous, because then you're dealing with drug dealers. You're dealing with people that you don't want your children dealing with, because they're trying to self-medicate. Yes. You know, it's getting even to the door that's the problem. Not once you're in the door, yes, of course, and having a care plan would be really, and a key worker would be really great, but it can be hard getting to that door first.
Yeah. Okay. Mary, do you want to answer that or add to that?
Just really briefly, first of all, thank you very much for your kind words and continued support of mental health reform and the work we do. I think Nell has kind of summed it up really well, in that a care plan being devised and having a key worker, that's the person that you would discuss treatment options with and dosages, you know, if it is about medication or what other treatment, you know, whether it's talk therapies, what other things are available to you. So we're talking about having a consultative relationship, or where you're just being told what to do. And I think we all know from any of our own experiences which of those is going to have a more positive outcome for the person. And we know now with the Assisted Decision Making Capacity Act that I know you did a lot of work on as well. You know, for people over 18, there's decision support arrangements and laws in place now, but 16 and 17-year-olds are still excluded from that, which is again why we need the urgent reform of the Mental Health Act. So we would say that key workers' care plans are absolutely vital to supporting a person and to empowering them in their own experiences.
Mm-hmm. So where it occurs, it is useful. But how much of a say does that young person have in that care plan? Is it handed to them, or do they co-create it?
I mean, the guidelines would say the operating procedures would say that they should be co-created and that it is best practice to have them. But I think in preparing for today and coming in, you know, myself and Nell, we're re-looking at the Mental Health Commission's independent reports into CAMHS and into the individual 9 CHO ones. And I think part of the problem that was mentioned earlier as well was around the postcode lottery. So if you have a team that are working really well, that are co-creating with the young person, that are listening to them, that are taking their views on board, as is the young person's right, you know, as is the young person's legal human rights, then the outcomes are going to be better. But the thing is that it's just patchy across the services. There isn't that standardised level of service across all of the CHOs, which is why we've also been asking consistently for the reinstatement of a national director of mental health, which is it's also in the programme for government. And we know we've had some meetings directly with Bernard Gloucester as well. We don't agree that there isn't a need for the national director. We welcome the new youth mental health office, but we do think there is that high level strategic accountability that's needed.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.